Hi, I'm Karen Wyngaard coming to you from the clubhouse, and I am thrilled to share with you another great retreat project. This one is called the Bottle Boutique, and it is a great box for storing all of your 2-ounce bottles in style. You can see here we can hold the new stipple mists, fit in there perfectly. Also your Mount It and 2-ounce bookbinding glue fit great. Acrylic paints, just so many different uses for storing items in style on your crafting table. So let's get started. In your kit you should have 5 pieces of bookboard. This is going to construct the structure of your box. So this is going to create that box tray. So you have your largest piece is going to be the base of the box, and then you should have 4 long narrow pieces, and if you stack them up you can see that 2 are longer and 2 are shorter. So we're going to refer to these as the long side walls or the short side walls. So we're going to start by grabbing one of the long walls and your box base. So you can see here we're going to build the box on top of the base, so it's important that we spread glue along one long edge of one long wall. So just get glue all along that edge, and we're setting this long wall on top of the base and just turning it to make sure that the edges are flush. So again, we're not on the table, we're on the box base itself. And because it's a long wall, the edges should align on both the front and the back. It'll take just a few seconds for that glue to set up before it'll stand on its own. Now we'll take one short wall. Now if I dry fit this, you can see that if I glue a short wall on, I'm going to have contact with the bookboard in 2 places, one short edge and one long edge. So go ahead and add glue to one short edge and one long edge of a short wall this time. Now the way this should work is you adhere it right up against that long wall you just installed, again making sure the edges are flush, and holding that in place for a few seconds until it stands up on its own. Next we'll glue the second short wall. So again, the place that I need to spread glue is on one short edge and one long edge, so that I can build and make contact with the existing bookboard pieces. So flush with the outside edge of the base, and just holding that for a few seconds until it stands up on its own. Making sure all the edges are aligned. If you're off by a little bit, don't worry about it, because the paper wrap will actually cover a multitude of sends. So if everything isn't lining up just exactly perfectly, you won't actually see that in the finished project. All right, it's time to add the final long wall. So if I dry fit this again, you can see, kind of predict where the glue needs to go. So we're going to make contact with these 2 short edges of the short walls, and then of course that long edge, one long edge of the long wall. Not confusing at all, right? Now you can add the glue to the front of this here. Oops, can't see. You can add glue here, or I find it's easiest to just add the glue to the item that you know the beginning and the end of. So I'm just going to add the glue to the front of each of those short walls and then glue it into place. And again, just hold it for a few seconds so that glue can set up and start to dry. And once your box is constructed, we're going to just set that aside so it can fully dry up. Next, you want to grab the folding board, the piece of black folding board from your kit. This is actually, last year, I believe at Retreat, we released a hammered copper folding board and a stainless steel folding board. This is the same product, but this is in a beautiful matte black finish. So we find that this is a lot thicker than even 100-pound cardstock, and it works great for our dividers. Place the 6x12 black folding board horizontally in front of you on your work surface. We're going to begin by drawing some vertical lines. The first line is going to be 1 inch from the left edge. So I'm just lining up the edge of the black folding board with the 1 inch mark on my ruler. Then we're going to draw a pencil mark every 2 inches across. So our next one is going to be at 3. And because I have a 3x14 ruler, I actually know that the width of my ruler is going to match 3 inches. So I'm just going to line that up. Then slide it down another 2 inches so that we're at 5. Then 7. 9. Oops, and 11. Next, we're going to draw horizontal pencil marks. This time, our first pencil mark is going to be at 1.5 inches. So I'm lining up the bottom edge of my folding board with 1.5 on my grid ruler. The next one is at 3. So again, with a 3x14 ruler, you can just use the edge of your ruler and the edge of your folding board. And then I'm just going to rotate this whole thing around because we're going to do 1.5 from this edge again. So just find 1.5 on your grid ruler. Lining up the bottom edge with that. And there you have the grid. Next, we're going to trim the folding board horizontally in our trimmer to create 6 equal pieces. So our first cut is at 10 inches, 8, 6, 4, and 2. Having done that, create 6 grid or spacer pieces. So our first step is to trim, and we're going to trim along the vertical pencil marks on each of these folding board pieces, and we need to go just past the horizontal pencil mark. So on each vertical pencil mark, we're going to trim till we're just past that horizontal pencil mark, and you're going to cut a little bit on each side so that you're creating these little darts. And that'll allow us to interlock these pieces when we get to building the dividers on our bottle boutique. So once you've cut all 3 darts in your piece, you'll repeat that step with the remaining 5 pieces. At this point, you're going to start to interlock them. So you just take the 2 open edges and slide them on top of each other until they connect or interlock. So just repeat that with all 6 pieces. So you'll have 3 down and 3 across. You can see it looks like a tic-tac-toe board, sort of, kinda, but with extra spaces. So now set that aside. Now that your box has had a chance to dry, we're going to start wrapping it with the text weight paper, this beautiful text weight paper. What I love about this pattern is it's an all-over pattern, so there's really no wrong way or wrong direction. So when we're gluing and wrapping, and if the pieces overlap, it's not a concern because of the overall pattern. So start with one of the 6x12 printed pieces, and we're going to place that on our work surface horizontally. And we need to draw a pencil guide, little guideline here to keep us nice and straight. And that's going to be 1 inch up from the bottom edge. So just one pencil mark, 1 inch up from the bottom edge. And you can go ahead and repeat that with your second printed piece. And we're drawing this pencil mark on the plain side of that overall print. As you can see there. Okay? So once you have your pencil guideline, we're going to brush glue onto one of these side walls. And before I do that, I'm just going to show you how to dry fit this sort of. If you spread glue here, then you'll place it glue side to the paper. And you want about an equal amount of reveal on both sides so that it's centered from left to right. So add the glue. Spreading it on the entire surface of one of those walls, one side wall. And place it glue side down to the paper using your 1 inch pencil guideline. Let's see, can you see that? Using your 1 inch pencil guideline to line everything up. And then you can flip it over for a second and just kind of work out any air bubbles and get good contact with the paper. Then we need to just wrap these 2 flaps up onto the side wall. So using your foam brush that probably has plenty of glue in it already, Just add glue to the area, only the area that is going to touch the sidewall. And then just wrap that up. You can see here. Work out any air bubbles. And then repeat that with the second side. And this is where you can start to see that the wrapping is going to cover any imperfections in your box construction. All right, now we want to continue wrapping to cover up all of this bookboard that is currently showing. So take your second piece of printed 6x12 paper, and this time we're going to just add glue from where the paper meets, maybe with a 1/2 inch over flap there to the end. So maybe just a 1/2 inch. Add glue to all the exposed bookboard. And then that's where you're going to line it up again with the pencil guideline, but we only want the 2 papers. I'm seeing that you can't see this here. We just want the 2 papers to overlap slightly, just maybe about a 1/2 inch, and then continue to use that pencil guideline to help you make sure that you're positioning the paper correctly. Now you can see we can continue to wrap the paper with this long wall. So just add glue to that section. And you can kind of roll it onto the paper. And again, using that 1 inch pencil guideline to keep you nice and straight. Now I can add glue to this section of the paper to wrap it around, and you can see we will have a gap, and that's okay. We do have an extra piece of paper for that. So just add a little bit more glue to finish off that 6x12 piece. And then if you take a look at the remaining printed papers in your kit, you want to locate the long narrow rectangle. That's going to be the piece that we use to fill over that gap. So add some glue to that. You only need to cover the areas that are going to touch the bookboard, and then just use the top and bottom edges of the existing paper wrap to line it up, so that, because we didn't draw a pencil guideline on that one, it wasn't necessary. So now you can see all 4 sides of my box are fully wrapped in this beautiful printed paper. Now at this point we want to go ahead and wrap the flaps on the bottom of our box. And you can do this very much like you do a Christmas gift. I'm going to take the 2 flaps that don't have any seams. So just take and fold that over to wrap the flap, and I don't have any glue yet. And then you'll just kind of crimp those edges or crease those edges. And it's very much like you wrap a gift with gift wrap. So once you've got those trained and your corners crimped, you can go ahead and add glue to that section to get it glued down to the bottom of the box. So now the 2 sections without any seams are glued into place. Now I can take care to glue anywhere where my seams are so that it forms one full piece. So just adding a little bit of glue to the seamed areas so that they stay down. And then once the seams are all glued, you'll add glue to that full section of the flap and press that into place. And as I mentioned, this overall print is very forgiving, so the seams won't even show to the naked eye when your box is finished. All right, so now you have 2 remaining printed pieces, and one of those is going to be the bottom cover of your box. So you can go ahead and add that now. Just spread glue over the entire surface and then center it into that open area to cover up the exposed bookboard. So now you can see the bottom of the box is completely covered. Now we're going to flip it over to the top side, and it's time to start training the paper to wrap around to the inside of the box. So I'm just going to take each of these corners and sort of crease it to make a pointy edge that I can use as a guideline for cutting the paper into flaps. It's not as easy to do the wrapping like we did on the bottom of the box. We're going to need to cut some slits here. So once you've got your paper creased, you can come in with a scissors and you're just going to trim along that creased line, or if you're comparing it to like a score line, so that you create flaps. And do that with all four corners, using that crease as a guide. And we're just cutting to the corner or the edge of the bookboard itself. You don't want to go past that, obviously, for wrapping purposes. All right, so now you can see I created 4 separate flaps. And again, 2 of my flaps have seams and 2 of my flaps do not. So taking the flaps that do not have the seams, just without adding any glue, we're going to start to train it to wrap around to the inside of the box. Now the paper may tear a little bit at the corners, but that's okay, because again, this text weight paper is very forgiving in design, and it also works really nicely with the glue. So dry fitting, kind of training those 2 non-seamed flaps down into the center of the box. Just get that all prepped. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and open them one at a time and add glue just to that flap. The training of it in the beginning really helps with giving you some leeway with folding to the inside and working out any of those creases. So I do recommend dry fit wrapping first, then gluing. And you can just use your fingers to kind of tuck everything on into the inside. And then do that with the opposite flap. Now again, we have the 2 flaps that have seams. I just use a little bit of bookbinding glue on those seams to make this piece so it's one solid piece. So just add a little bit of glue to those sections. So I'm only gluing the seams here. And then once you've done that, you can take and train these 2 flaps to go down inside the box and tuck. And again, just kind of pre-training that paper, pre-creasing that paper so that when it's wet with glue, you have time to get everything aligned the way you want. And then you can open them and add glue and wrap. And don't worry about small lumps and bumps on the inside of the box, because our spacers will cover all of that. Again, you know, this overall print is very forgiving, so little lumps and bumps won't show or affect the performance of your box. And if you get it at little torn corners like this, just add a touch of glue and wrap that down, and it doesn't even show. And if you want to take a bone folder to the inside, you can, but your fingers work just as well. Just tucking everything into the corners. So now you can see our box is fully wrapped. On the outside, we just need to cover the exposed bookboard on the inside, because even with our spacers, you'll see down into the box, and who wants to see naked bookboard? So now your other last printed piece that matches the same size as the bottom cover will go to the inside. So again, you're just going to add glue, drop it down inside, and burnish. So now your box is fully assembled and ready for the dividers. So since you have already interlocked all the pieces, you will tuck this down inside the box. Now don't be alarmed if it seems like it won't fit. Do not trim anything off. You're tempted to possibly, but don't. Sometimes just bending those pieces of folding board just slightly will help negotiate it into the base of the box, and then just make adjustments with your hands. The reason you don't want to trim is you don't want these dividers coming out later on, and you can see once you've got all that in there and straightened out, those dividers aren't going anywhere. So that is the box construction. Now you have a couple of options for the base of the box. If you flip this over, your kit comes with these cute little wood button feet. Those are super fun. You can leave them natural, or you could paint those black or any other favorite color, and then those would tuck into the corners of your base. But first, let's decorate the corners. There's these really cool corner protectors that come in your kit, all along with teensy tiny little nails. So each of these goes along one corner of the box to protect the edges from getting scuffed or damaged in any way. Now, if you take a close look at these corner dividers, you'll see that there is a metal seam in one side. So they're solid, and then one has a seam. I just kind of bent these in a little bit to kind of reduce the appearance of that seam. And then when you're placing these on your box, just make sure that that seam is going on the bottom of your box. Now you have two choices for adhering these seams. You have your mini nails, which work great. Otherwise, if you're lazy like me, you can use bookbinding glue on the inside. And if you're really worried about stability, you can do both. So just add bookbinding glue to the corner. I'm just going to rotate this so that the seam falls on the bottom of my box. And the glue takes a little while longer to set up on a piece of metal because it's a non-porous surface. So you may just need to hold that into place for a few minutes. Otherwise, you can use, again, the nails, the tiny little microscopic nails. And don't worry about the nails going through the board. So don't worry about pounding nails into the opening of the box, because you're always, where the way these holes line up for your nails, you're always pounding into a sidewall. So you don't have to worry about the nails poking through the inside. Now there may not be enough nails for every single hole that you have, so just use them sparingly to add that decorative corner, and you can see how beautiful that turns out. So again, you can use just the bookbinding glue, or you can use the enclosed nails to add those corners to all four corners. So once all of your decorative corner protectors are in place, that's when you can add your cute little wooden feet to the bottom of the box. And I found that the corner that is created on the base of your box is a great guide for tucking that in so that all four are very even for you. Another option besides the wooden feet would be one of our swivel mechanisms. It's real cute. It's like a little lazy Susan, so it'll actually create it so that your box can spin, which is kind of fun. I actually made one for my daughter, decorated the papers with inks and an ink applicator to decorate the outside of the box, and then it's super cute. It holds all of her nail polish collection, and all of her manicure equipment, and then it just spins around so she can easily find the color she's looking for. So I encourage you to get probably more than one of these boxes because they are super cute, and they will hold all of your 2-ounce bottles or makeup and nail polish. They're just cute and clever storage. So I hope you enjoyed this project and have a great day.